Hello, dear students. I'm Dr. Getachew. Following a request made by Secret, I have come here just on the video to help you work out some of the salient and very important questions on some of the selected questions in SLC examination. So I'm going to present what I have prepared for you accordingly. So number one. Question number one reads like this. The more we help him, the sense of dependency will develop. So handle things cautiously, it says, right? So there are four choices given. First one, more. B, less. C, the most. D, the more. The correct answer in this context is D, the more. The reason is the more we help him is followed by a comparison clause indicating a cause-effect relationship, as you can see. So this structure typically uses the more to show that as one thing increases, another thing also increases in a proportional manner. Here, it suggests that the more we help him, the more sense of dependency he will develop. Now let's try to break down the options and eliminate. For example, the first one is A, right? More. This doesn't fit grammatically. After the more we help him, as it doesn't create a correct structure or parallelism for the causal relationship described. So A cannot be. Why? Because A is only left with more, but the previous statement is preceded by the more. So this cannot be. B, less. This would simply imply decreasing effect, which is opposite of the intended meaning. So it cannot totally be an answer. C, the most. Look, this cannot be an answer because this suggests a superlative form, which doesn't fit the comparative structure needed here, right? So because of this reason, comparative degree and superlative degrees, they cannot simply go hand in hand as a result of this, and C cannot be the answer. D, the more, as I have already mentioned, this is a correct comparative form, used to indicate that as the action of helping him increases, so does the development of dependency. So because of this reason, then I would say D is the ideal answer. Okay, students? Great. All right. You don't seem to have ever seen the creature blank I told you about. It looked nothing like a kangaroo except in the way it walked. Now there are four multiple choices given for you, as you can see. First one is A, one, B, who, C, whom, D, which. So the correct answer that would appropriately fill out the blank space in a very sensible manner is choice D, which carries the relative pronoun which. Now, what could be the reason, just like the one I told you earlier? Let me try to elaborate the reason behind the curtain. In the sentence, as you can see, the creature which I told you about is a relative clause that provides additional information about the creature. Relative clause most of the time, beginning with which, are used to give non-restrictive or non-defining information about the noun they refer to. So because of this reason, then we'd argue that the most appropriate answer would be D. As you can see here, the phrase which I told you about is adding extra details about the creature, okay, without essential information that would change the meaning of the sentence if omitted. So because of this reason, then the ideal answer would be D. The other options cannot be answers. Why? Because of the following justifications. I will simply try to tell you the reason behind the curtain. A, for example, if you're taking A, one. This is not an appropriate choice because one is used for countable nouns, right? As you can see, one is used for countable nouns in general statements, not specific creatures described in the previous context. So in this regard, one cannot be the best fit. When we're coming to who, This is used for people, not for creatures or animals. So in this regard, who automatically cannot be an answer. When we take whom, which is in choice C, this is the objective case of who, all right? Used when it is the object of a verb or preposition. So because of this reason, it's typically used for people, not animals, for creatures. So because of this reason, then it cannot be the answer. So the best answer is D. Great. Good students. Now, having done that one, let's move on to number 3. When we're coming to number 3, the question goes like this, all right? If one doesn't sleep for days in a row, one dash getting disturbed psychologically and may even die. Sleeping is very important for normal functions of life. So there are 4 choices given here. The first one is will start, A, B starts, C is going to start, D may start. So the most appropriate answer here is choice A, will start. What do you think the reasons could be? Just let me justify the reason as to why, of course, our answer in this particular context, of course, becomes will start. Will start can be the answer because this is a correct future tense from indicating a probable outcome based on the condition presented. Starts cannot be. Why? Because this is incorrect, because it's a simple present tense which doesn't convey the future consequence as effectively as a future tense. So because of this reason, then we cannot accept this one to be an answer. C is going to start. In fact, is going to start. While this is a future form class, it is less commonly used in this context compared to will start. Is going to start just as a planned or predetermined action. As a result of this, we don't use it, or it doesn't fit well with the condition presented in the sentence. So because of these reasons, then starts and is going to start cannot be. What about may start? This option contains a typo star instead of start, and also uses may, which suggests possibly rather than the certainty implied by the condition in the sentence. So as a result of this, then the most appropriate answer in this context that would make the sentence even more meaningful in being there is choice A, will start. Great class. I hope, dear students, you're following me, right? Great. Now, let me take you to question number 4. Mulugeta always adored the dash Toyota car that his father drove at the beginning of the 80s. All right? In this context, what you are supposed to identify is the sequence of adjectives. The sequence of adjectives. Adjectives most of the time, of course, can be described in terms of opinion, can be explicated in terms of size, can be explicated in terms of age, also can be explicated in terms of shape or what have you. So whenever we're taking this question into account, then the very objective it has behind, the very intent of the question is just to identify as to whether students know how sequentially, of course, the different features of adjectives must appear. For example, small, ugly, beautiful, what have you. S stands for size, which is small, which may stand for small, big. Age, in terms of old, young, what have you. Shape, round, cylindric, spherical, what have you. Color, red, yellow, green, what have you. Origin, Japanese, Ethiopian, Chinese, American, what have you. Material, wooden, or any other material, for example, metallic or what have you. Purpose, cleaning the house. It could be, for example, I am here to clean the house, I am here to learn, what have you. So whenever we're taking into consideration this what call organizational makeup, in which different adjectives are to appear in a given structure, then they should take the order of Osas comp. So taking this into account, according to this order, adjectives, all right, adjectives that describe size, small, age, old, shape, ugly, and color red should be placed in that sequence before the noun they modify, which is the Toyota car. As you can see, the noun which is to be modified or which is given here to be modified is the noun Toyota car. So whenever you're taking this into account, then you would understand. Thank you, students. Now I think you are following me. Now let's move on to number 5. When we're coming to number 5, they asked us to do them a favor of disclosing the company's secret, but that was unacceptable to us. We cannot compromise our integrity, okay? In this context, the correct answer is choice D, which carries the answer do. They asked us to do them a favor of disclosing the company's secret, but that was unacceptable to us. Why do is an answer in this regard? The sentence, as you can see, is structured as follows. They asked us to, then automatically what should come is a verb. Them a favor of disclosing the company's secret, right? But that was unacceptable to us. To maintain grammatical coherence in this context and meaning, the verb used should be do, as in do them a favor. The phrase do a favor is a common expression in English meaning to perform a favor or act of kindness for someone. So whenever you want to express an idea in which you are simply trying to do a favor or to do something as a favor for somebody, then the most appropriate auxiliary that should come in making your idea more concrete and more even clearer is do. So because of this reason, do is an answer. In fact, let's try to dissect each of the choices one by one. Whenever we are dissecting each of them, for example, if you're taking A, choice A, which reads as bestow, is not correct here because bestow means to give something formally or officially. For example, I was bestowed a big responsibility by my company, for example. So often with ceremony, so it doesn't fit the context of doing someone a favor. It cannot totally be appropriate to be used here. B, give is incorrect because although you can give a favor in some context, it's not typical collection or collocation in this particular sentence. C, make is incorrect because make a favor is not idiomatic in English. Make is something which is related with creating or producing something. For example, I am making a cake or I am making my own decision. So leave me alone. Do is a correct choice because of the fact that it collocates with a favor to form the common expression. Do someone a favor, which is very, very important in this class. So the most appropriate answer is do. When we are coming to number 6, Dash, the pilot and his crew recognized the plane had a problem. However, they didn't say anything less disturbing the passengers, it says. So there are 4 choices given together. Choice A, either. Choice B, all. Choice C, D. Choice B. Choice D, sorry, both. Choice D, both, sorry. The correct answer in this context is choice D, both. Now, in this context, we need a word that indicates that both the pilot and his crew recognize the problem. So let's try to dissect each of these choices. A, for example, if you're taking choice A class, together. Together doesn't fit grammatically or logically in this particular sentence. It's just this unity in action rather than a shared recognition of a given problem. So whenever we're using together, then it simply implies sort of unity that should exist between different individuals in taking the very aim that they might be having at hand one step. B, either implies a choice between 2 options, which doesn't make sense in the context of recognizing a problem. So it cannot be. All implies everyone, which could include passengers, and doesn't specifically denote the pilot and his crew. So when we are coming to D, however, both is the correct choice, as I have told you, because it directly refers to the pilot and his crew recognize the problem. So these 2 groups of categories of individuals, of course, are the ones that should take the responsibility of what's happening around. So it emphasizes that both parties, the pilot and the crew, were aware of the issue. So the best answer in this context, so the most appropriate answer in this context is of course choice D. Great. Whenever we are just going down the ladder, we find question number 7. I think students, you are getting what I'm trying to clarify somehow clearer, right? I suppose, at least I assume that. When we are coming to question number 7, it says like this: you've been coughing the whole afternoon. You've been coughing the whole afternoon. Dash, question mark. A, is syrup good for that? B, why do you do that? C, is that a problem very common? D, why don't you see your doctor? The correct answer in this particular context is, of course, choice D. Why don't you see your doctor? Why do I say like this? Let's analyze the sentences and the options. Let's try to dissect them. You have been coughing the whole afternoon, dash, question mark, right? This statement implies concern about the person's persistent coughing, because from the sentence, what you can understand is that the speaker has deliberately made use of present perfect continuous tense. So this shows that the person, of course, has been coughing persistently. The appropriate response would be a question expressing concern and suggesting a course of action. Here is a breakdown to the options, let me tell you. A, is syrup good for that? Is not appropriate. Why it's not appropriate? Because it suggests a remedy rather than addressing the concern about the coughing. So it's only a remedy rather than addressing the concern about the coughing. So whenever you simply try to analyze it from the context in which the structure has appeared, then this cannot be a sensible answer. When you come to B, why do you do that, is not suitable because it sounds accusatory or puzzled about the coughing. So because of this reason, we would say that this is not a sentence which is highly empathetic or helpful for the person who is under stress. C, is that problem very common, is a bit off topic because it shifts the focus from the person's cough to the general prevalence of coughing problem. So it is a little bit slippery in its nature, and it's a little bit off the topic of the discussion. So the best answer in this regard, as I have just mentioned from the very outset, is choice D. Why don't you see a doctor is a correct choice because it directly addresses the concern about the coughing and suggests seeking medical service because the man, according to the context given, of course, is in need of help and is in need of advice. So in this regard, any ideas that can fit the purpose is the ones that would help the person become very much relieved of the very problem he's in. So in this regard, choice D would be the most appropriate choice. So that's it. Good, class. Now let's come to number 8. If you enjoy dash, you can register with us and trek around the city every Sunday in the afternoon. If you enjoy. Look, in this regard, if you enjoy, the best answer is walking A. Choice A is the best answer. Why choice A is the best answer? Because enjoy basically is a verb which is followed by the gerund form of the verb, walking. So automatically A is the answer. For example, if you are taking B, to walk, enjoy as a verb is not followed by the gerund form of the verb. To have a walk, the same story. To be walking, the same story. So the only appropriate option or choice that carries the ing form of the verb and its gerund form is, of course, choice A, walking. So because of this reason, then walking would be the most appropriate choice. Now, number 9. When we're coming to number 9, we don't have to dice the make-off with such an irreplaceable heritage of the nation. They should be accountable for what they did. So the correct answer is allow. Allow. You know the reason why allow is correct while the others are not correct, or while allow is the most appropriate choice while the others are not. Let me try to de-aggregate each of these choices and make analysis so that you'd have a very clear understanding of the topic and at the same time it gets the idea in a more concrete fashion. A, Allow is a concrete answer because it fits perfectly in the context of not permitting or tolerating the action of taking away the heritage. So allow is naturally followed by the verb with preposition to. So that's why. B, let is similar in meaning to allow. Yeah, in this regard, in terms of meaning, of course, allow and share, allow and let share some commonalities. However, let in this context is more informal. Not only that, let also as a verb, of course, doesn't have to be followed by the preposition to. So because of this reason, let cannot be. Concede means to admit or acknowledge something as true, which doesn't fit the context of preventing or stopping someone from taking the heritage. So in this context, concede cannot be an answer. Why? Because totally concede, if it is inserted in this particular blank space, definitely to make the sentence decontextualized. Permit is synonymous with allow, but allow is a more suitable choice here because it directly addresses the idea of not permitting or tolerating the action. So because of this reason, permit cannot be an answer. So the most appropriate answer in this regard is choice A. Fine. Now we're coming down to question number 10. I hope students you are simply trying to follow me and you're getting my ideas clearer. I hope so. Now, when we're coming to number 10, they have been clearing the forest for 3 days. Dash intervened to stop them. Look, A, someone need. B, I want someone. C, how about you? D, I wish someone. The correct answer in this context is D, I wish someone. You know, the reason is, if you are just opting or going for choice A, which reads someone need, is not grammatically even correct and doesn't convey the intended meaning of hoping or wishing for someone to intervene. First of all, there is subject-verb agreement error. Someone needs, at least it should have been like that, but unfortunately it's not like this. So even that on its own right, of course, would make this choice somehow inappropriate. When you're coming to choice B, I want someone, expresses a desire for someone, but it lacks the implication of wishing for intervention in the specific context of stopping the forest clearing. See, how about you? It says, right? This is a question asking for someone's opinion or suggestion, which is not suitable here as it doesn't express the desired intervention. But D, I wish someone, is a correct answer because it indicates a hopeful desire for someone to intervene and stop the forest clearing, of course. A hopeful sort of expectation and expression which the speaker wants to make his idea clearer to the other party so that by the end of the day, what you call this, very swift action should be taken so that the forest could be saved from being destroyed. So the person is expressing his wish. So in this regard, of course, choice D most likely could be an answer. Great. Number 11. He has been paralyzed for months and was literally bedridden. Thanks God. He now is dash walk around the house, right? Now still there are 4 choices given. A, interested to. B, able to. C, turning able to. D, feeling able to. So which one do you think the correct answer? Students, of course, you might be contemplating by your own, I hope, right? You might be contemplating by your own. Let's now go to the answer and let's try to check whether the very anticipation, the very contemplation you had was right or wrong. Here is the correct answer. The correct choice is choice B, class. All right, students, correct choice. The correct answer is choice B. The reason is the sentence is indicating that the person was, as you see, previously unable to walk due to being paralyzed, right? But now has regained this ability. The phrase that correctly completes the sentence to convey this meaning is able to. So the answer is able to. Now, let's dissect each one of them and let's try to see why the others cannot be the most appropriate answers so that you'd have everything clearer with a more concrete gesture. A, interested to. is incorrect. Interested to is incorrect because interested means to have an interest in something, which is not appropriate in this context. So always whenever you are trying to work out such kinds of questions, try to understand the very context. What kind of purpose does the writer or the speaker have in the mind, in his or her mind, whenever she tries to formulate these questions? So interested to in this context, of course, doesn't have that much, appropriate meaning. When you go to choice B class, when you go to choice B, it says able to is a correct answer because it means having the ability or capability of doing something, which fits perfectly with the context of the person regaining the ability of walking, the ability to walk. That means the person is restoring what he had lost. C, turning able to is awkward and not grammatically correct. Totally, turning able to, there is no such an expression in English so long as my knowledge is concerned. So turning able to doesn't convey the most intended meaning and it's awkward basically, as I have just mentioned. Feeling able to is also not correct because of the similar kind of reason I mentioned while I was narrating a story in relation to turning able to. So the answer, the most appropriate answer in this context is choice B. Now let's come to question number 12, students. Great. In question number 12, the question reads like this. There are thousands of displaced people in different parts of the country who have no proper shelter, food, or clothes. Don't you think we dash help them? Is a question. I think this question is related to your ability of using modal auxiliaries in their appropriate context and in their appropriate places. So different modal auxiliaries have been given here as choices. Which one do you think is the best choice? The best or the correct answer is choice A, O to 2. Because this sentence basically expresses a moral obligation, as you can see, or suggestion to provide assistance to the displaced people who are in need of basic necessities. The phrase that best fits this context is O to 2. Why? Because whenever we are using O to 2, most of the time we use it to express moral obligation. And the sentence in the as it has already been crafted, the context clearly shows as that there are things which we are expected to accomplish related to the very moral obligation that we as human beings, of course, possess. So let's dissect each question. A, O to 2. As I have told you, O to 2 is the correct answer because it signifies a moral imperative or obligation to do something. It conveys the idea that it is the right thing to do to provide assistance to those in need. So always class, students, whenever you want to mainly express ideas that should take place as a result of or because of the reason or the fact that people are expected to discharge a certain responsibility on a humanitarian basis, the most appropriate modal auxiliary that is advised to be used is O to 2. Right? Now let's come to B, shall. Shall is used to indicate future intention or determination, but it doesn't convey the same sense of obligation or duty as O to 2 in this context. C, could, suggests possibility or capability, but it doesn't emphasize a moral imperative or duty to help. So could also cannot be an answer. Might suggests possibility or permission, which is not suitable in expressing a strong suggestion or obligation to help. So whenever we take all this into account, then we would understand that O to 2 is the best answer. Great class. Now, let's go to number 13. When we are coming to number 13, dash gentleman we saw at the gate. We were coming in his new school director. I heard he was a teacher at Burame Secondary School, it says, right? Now, the correct answer in this context is the definite article the. Why we are saying the definite article the is a correct answer? All right? Let me elaborate. In this sentence, We are identifying a specific gentleman who was seen at the gate and is now revealed to be the new school director. That's what the context, of course, signifies. The appropriate word to use here is which is used to refer to a specific person or thing that's already known or can be identified from the context. You see. For example, I can say, I bought a horse. Look, at the beginning, since I didn't give you any clue as to which horse I am talking about, I should use the indefinite article a. But right after that, since I have already told you that I bought a horse, whenever I am telling you something in relation to the horse which I told you that I bought, then the second statement should appear always with the preposition the. The horse was white in color, for example, I say. Why? Because I have already told you that the white horse is the one which I told you previously that I had bought it already. Great. So, let's see why the others cannot be answers. 1. A. Which. Which is used to ask about choices or options, not to specify a particular person. B. Some. Some refers to an unspecified amount or number of people, which doesn't fit the context of specifying a particular gentleman, so it cannot be used for specifying a given individual. C. The. This is the correct answer I have told you because of the reason. D. Any refers to one or more of a particular type or category, but it doesn't specify a specific person. So because of this reason, then the best answer is the definite article the. Number 14, now I can go. Number 14. Dash Baye Dash, more tampered with this computer. I haven't seen them around and I think they were out of office the whole day. Which one could be the most appropriate answer to the question from the choices given? A to D. As you can see, either or, A, B, neither nor, C, not only but also, D, both, and. The correct answer is D, both and. You know the reason? In this sentence, as you can see, the speaker is indicating that both Baye and Umod are suspects for tampering with the computer. The appropriate correlative conjunction to use here is both and, which is used to emphasize that two things are true or done together, because the individuals who have been mentioned there as the ones who tampered with the computers were Baye and Umod. So because of this reason, these two individuals are true, so both would be the most appropriate answer. Now, why the others cannot be answers? Why the others cannot be answers? Let me justify. A, either or. Okay? Either or, most of the time, is used to present a choice between two options, not to indicate that both options are true or done together. So it cannot be. B, neither nor, is used to indicate that none of the options are true or done together, which doesn't fit the context of both being suspects. C, not only but also, is used to emphasize two connected things, often to add emphasis, but it doesn't convey the sense of both being suspects for tampering with the computer. So because of this reason, the best answer would be D. Very nice, class. Students, I hope you're following me, being alert. Am I right? Great. Now, number 15. When Dabala arrived, she dashed Dorowat, but he didn't have the time to wait and enjoy it. Look, in this sentence, the action of making Dorowat, a traditional Ethiopian dish, as you all know very well, was ongoing in the past when Dabala arrived. So the correct tense to use to indicate this ongoing action in the past is a past continuous tense, which is formed with was making. So the best answer is choice C, was making. Why the others cannot be answers? Let's see. A, had been making. As you can see, had been making is the past perfect continuous tense, right? Which indicates an action that started in the past before another past action or time but doesn't fit the context here where the action of making Dorot was ongoing when Dabala arrived. So it cannot be, because had been making shows a remote but a continuous past action. So it could have matched with past perfect tense, not with simple past tense. So there is an parallelism in this context. If we try to use had been making to be regarded or to be taken as the most appropriate answer, then it would be unparalleled with the simple past tense used, which indicates the arrival of Dabala. Now let's go to B, has been making. This is present perfect continuous tense, which indicates an action that started in the past and still the action is going up without being interrupted up to the present time. This tense is not suitable for describing an action that was going on in the past, and it cannot totally go in line with the past continuous tense, and because of this reason we would say that this cannot be an answer. When we are going to D, is making, is a present continuous tense, which describes an action that's happening right now, but Dabala's arrival, of course, took place in the past. So parallelism is an important concept in English. For example, if I say, I went to Mercato yesterday, then I should say, bought some vegetables. I cannot say I went to Mercato yesterday and then I will buy or I have bought some vegetables, because this is because of the rule of parallelism. So because of this reason, the most appropriate answer in this regard would be was making. Great. Now let's go to question number 16. Their plane is expected to land slightly after 3 p.m. Dash, it gets late. Give me a call and I will see what I can do. Look, in this context, the correct answer is D. Why? Because in this sentence, the speaker is simply suggesting that if the plane's arrival gets delayed or if it becomes late, the listener should give them a call. So the phrase that best fits this context to indicate a contingency or possibility of something happening is in case. In case, most of the time, of course, is used to express something as a contingency or a possibility that should come in if something which is to be accomplished, of course, is missing because of various variables. Now let's try to dissect each of them. Cannot be answers or cannot be at least appropriate choices for the context that has already been put in place here. A, but for. Look, but for is used to introduce an exception or to indicate what would happen if something didn't occur, okay? Which doesn't fit the context of suggesting a contingency plan. So the context simply expects a contingency plan. But for is something which is totally out of context because it doesn't fit in appropriately the very intent of the speaker. B, probably. Probably indicates likelihood or uncertainty class, which is not appropriate in this context where the speaker is proposing a course of action based on a potential delay. So the speaker is simply proposing a course of action provided that there is a potential delay. So whenever there is a proposal that's given by somebody, in case there is some sort of what you call this contingency plan needed, so the most appropriate marker to be used, of course, is in case. So that's why D, as I have told you, in case exactly fits this answer or this context. Then because of this reason, I would suggest that D be regarded as your answers. Clear, dear student? Are you following me? Are you following us? Great, thank you. Now, let's come to question number 17. Question number 17 says, when the police arrived, the burglars, organized thieves, burglars, dash away with the money, but there is hope that they would be caught. Look, the most appropriate answer from the choices given here is had already made. Choice D is the most appropriate answer. As usual, let me try to de-aggregate each of these choices and then let me tell you why the rest of the choices cannot be answers. As you can see in this sentence, dear student, the action of the burglars taking away the money, making their escape occurred before the arrival of the police. This indicates that the past perfect tense is appropriate. Why? Because when two actions took place in the past, one in the simple past and the other one in, again, a simple past, then despite the fact that those two actions took place in the past, but they took place in a different time. So, relatively speaking, the actions that took place in a relatively remoter time should be explicated or should be stated by using past perfect. For example, let's assume that I went to a given bus station to see of a given family of mine or a given family member of mine. By the time we arrived at the bus station, let's assume that the time when we arrived at the bus station was just 6. By the time we arrived at the bus station, the bus had already left before 15 minutes. Look, these two actions took place yesterday. I'm talking about those actions that took place yesterday, standing on today. So whenever I'm just talking about those actions that took place yesterday, one action or one of the actions should be stated using simple past, while the other one, which took place relatively in a remoter time, should be stated using past perfect. The same story is true here. So, are already making is in the present continuous tense, which suggests an ongoing action happening now or around the present time. So it cannot totally be related with the past. So this tense doesn't fit the context of describing a past action completed before another past action happened. B, have been making, is in the present perfect continuous tense, which suggests an action that started in the past and is still continuing or has just been completed up to the present moment. It doesn't fit the context of a specific past action. Why? Because present perfect continuous tense shows an action that began in a given past and still the action is still continuing without being interrupted. For example, for the past 20 or 30 minutes, I have been lecturing. So I have been doing this consistently without having any interruption anywhere. But this action, whenever I'm talking about this action tomorrow, it would automatically be a past action, right? Yeah. Have already made is in the present perfect, choice C, which suggests that an action that started in the past and has just been completed, focusing on the result or consequence of the action. So in this regard, it cannot refer to anything which is related to the past. Had already made, as I have told you, is the most appropriate answer. So because of this reason, had already made becomes an appropriate answer. I hope, dear student, I have given you ample justifications and evidence, ample reasons as to why D could be a more appropriate answer than the rest of the choices. Clear? Great, great. Number 18. They took off early morning, dash make it in time. Otherwise, they would be late. All right? So, in this context, the correct answer from the list of choices provided, the correct answer would be choice B. Why I'm saying choice B would be the most appropriate answer, let me, as usual, try to give you an evidence-based sort of justification as to why choice B is an answer while the remaining ones cannot be. A, in order that. In order that is focused to introduce a clause expressing purpose or intention, but it should be followed by a verb phrase. Example, in order that they could make it in time. It is not used correctly in this sentence. B, so as to. This is a correct answer I have told you because it's used to indicate purpose or intention. So as to, for example, I'm here on this video so as to give you grammar lesson, for instance. By using so as to, I have simply expressed the reason why I'm just appearing on this video. C, with the intention of, is also used to indicate purpose or intention. Yeah, This distractor, of course, looks to be somehow closer in terms of plausibility to be used along. We saw that, but it is more formal and verbose. You know, verbose means one's inability of expressing his idea within the shortest possible words. So it is a bit verbose compared to so as to, and at the same time, it is more formal. In the interest of two is grammatically totally incorrect and doesn't convey the correct meaning because there is no such English. So, because of all these reasons, the correct answer, as I just mentioned earlier, is choice B. Thank you. Now, let me take you to question number 19. Dash prices are still on the rise. We hope they will come down in the near future. The correct answer in this context is choice A, also. Why? You know, in this sentence, the speaker is expressing a contrast or a concession. You know, concession. It's a kind of an issue that is presented for convincing somebody. They are acknowledging that prices are currently rising, but expressing hope or expectation that they will decrease in the future. So, why the others cannot be answers, while also can? Also introduces a contrast or concession. It indicates that despite the fact that prices are still rising, there is hope that they will decrease in the future. But if you're taking choice B, even if introduces a hypothetical condition or possibility, which doesn't fit the context of expressing a contrast between rising prices and future expectations, because even if in this context or in its use simply shows a more hypothetical condition. But the context in which this question is structured doesn't allow that. Nevertheless, suggests that despite a preceding fact or point, there is a contrasting or opposing point which doesn't fit well in this context of expressing a hope or future price reduction. D, in contrast to, introduce a comparison between two things that are different or opposite, which doesn't fit the context of expressing a contrast between current rising price and future expectations. So, and at the same time, also as a marker, usually comes at the beginning, and it has a potential of, being used in a complex sentence structure. So this sentence, as you can see, is a complex structure. For example, if you're adding also prices are still on the rise, comma, we hope they will come down in the near future. So because of this and other main reasons, definitely also is the most appropriate answer. Now let's still continue. Let me continue my explanation. Now, whenever I'm just going down the ladder, we get question number 20, right? She was packing all morning as her flight was scheduled for the evening of the same day. Dash, her husband, was arranging stuff in his office. The correct answer is B, meanwhile. You know? Why? In this sentence, the speaker is describing simultaneous actions or events. The wife was packing all morning. Look, this action was taking place. And at the same time, her husband was arranging stuff in his office. So these two actions were taking place parallelly, but in different places. So the word that best connects such kinds of simultaneous actions is in fact meanwhile, or the marker that most of the time, of course, would be an appropriate marker in merging or combining such kinds of actions that are expressed parallelly, among others, of course, would be meanwhile. So, A, contrarily, cannot be an answer, means in contrast or opposition, which doesn't fit the context of describing simultaneous actions, because the actions are what kinds of actions? Simultaneous actions. But there is no any contrast, or there is no any, what call this, contrary sort of action that was going on. So because of this reason, contrarily will totally be out of context. B, meanwhile. I've told you this is the most appropriate answer. C, what is more? This is used to introduce an additional point or argument, which doesn't fit the context of describing simultaneous issues, simultaneous actions. D, supposedly. Supposedly cannot be an answer. Why? Because supposedly means according to what is generally assumed or believed to be true, which doesn't fit the context of describing parallel actions or simultaneous actions that took place in a definite past. So because of all these reasons, while A, C, and D, or choice A, choice C, and choice D cannot be answers, but choice B would definitely prove itself to be an answer because of the reasons I tried to mention earlier. Good. Now, dear students, now we are coming to question number 21. Expressing my earnest conviction that you are following me very seriously. Now let me go down to question number 21 and let me read out this question. Blank, it has drastically changed the world in many positive ways. Modernization has also spoiled the cultures of many nations and created undisciplined citizens. Which one would be the most appropriate answer? In fact, the most appropriate answer is choice A, however. Let's analyze the sentence and the options, as usual. In this sentence, the phrase before the comma introduces a positive aspect of modernization, while the phrase after the comma presents a contrasting or negative aspect of modernization. The word that best expresses this contrast in this context would be however. Why? Because however is used to introduce a contrasting statement or idea. It indicates that despite the positive changes brought about by modernization, there are negative consequences as well. Not only that, however is a marker of transition. However is a marker of transition, while the rest, despite the fact that, and in comparison, they are markers of subordination. So the very structure of the sentence here, for example, is, it requires, however, just to come at the beginning or to appear at the beginning. Therefore, the best answer would be, however. In spite of means despite or regardless of something, but it doesn't introduce a contrasting idea in the same way as however does. C, in comparison is used to compare two things or ideas, which doesn't fit the context of contrasting positive and negative impacts of modernization, despite the fact that it introduces a concessive clause indicating contrast or opposition. So, but it's more formal and doesn't fit this purpose. So because of this reason, then we would say that the most appropriate answer definitely would be however. Now, number 22. Never borrow money from this group of loaners. They will dash you pay back double. The correct answer is false. Never borrow money from this group of loaners. They will dash you pay back double. The correct answer is false. Why? Let's analyze. In this context, the sentence is warning about a group of loaners who will compel or pressure or force the borrower to pay back double the amount borrowed. The word that best fits this meaning, indicating coercion or compulsion, is force. So let me try to dissect each of the choices given, and then let me try to elaborate as to why the rest of the choices apart from force cannot be. Make. In fact, make can mean to cause or compel someone to do something. Yeah, make looks to be somehow more appropriate, but it's not as appropriate as force. But force is more appropriate here as it implies a stronger sense of compulsion. Otherwise, make can be an answer. But force shows a stronger sense of compulsion, which is even stronger than the word make. Or sometimes they call make the hot verb, make. B, do. Do is too general and doesn't convey the idea of compelling someone. It doesn't, or do is not used to compel someone unless it comes just at the beginning of a sentence. For example, do open the door. If I simply say do open the door, then in this context, do is used to add leverage. on the very order that is being given. C, force. Force means to make someone do something against their will, which fits well with the context of making the borrower pay back double. D, let means to allow or permit, which is the opposite of what the sentence is conveying. So because of this reason, make is an appropriate one. Number 23. You should not expect us exactly at 6 p.m. We dash make it. But if we happen to be a bit late, just take it easy and start the program, it says. Look, the correct answer in here is modal auxiliary could. Why? Because in this sentence, the speaker is expressing uncertainty, as you can see, about arriving exactly at 6 p.m. He's expressing he's being very much uncertain about the fact that he can exactly reach the place at 6 p.m. Because of this reason, they are suggesting that they might be able to make it on time. But there is also a possibility of being late. The modal verb that best fits this context in this regard, or in this context of uncertainty or possibility, is the modal auxiliary could. Why the others cannot be? Answers while could can. A, shall. Shall is used to express future intention or obligation, okay? But it doesn't convey the uncertainty or possibility. So to express uncertainty or possibility, we cannot use the modal auxiliary shall. Shall, even in certain contexts, can be used to show options. For example, shall we go out and then have a walk, or shall we remain here, for instance? So in such kinds of contexts, of course, shall can be used. Otherwise, shall cannot express possibility or less certain actions. B, must. When we talk about must, expresses necessity or obligation. You know, must mainly shows internal obligation, which doesn't fit the context of expressing uncertainty about arriving on time. So even must, if it is used in a proper context, then it can show certainty, not uncertainty. So the context doesn't permit must to be used as the most appropriate modal auxiliary to be used. C, whenever we're coming to C, could is the correct answer. I have told you because of the reasons which I tried to enumerate earlier. Can express ability or permission in this context, but it doesn't convey the uncertainty or possibility of arriving on time. So because of this reason, then I would say that the most appropriate answer would be could. Now, question number 24. She was telling me the story of her ex-boyfriend who died in a car crash 10 years ago. Then she burst into tears and screams, and I could never stop her. Right? Look, in this context, the correct answer is B, suddenly. Why? Because in this sentence, the adverb is describing, the adverb suddenly is an adverb in this context, as you can see. So the adverb suddenly is describing how she reacted after telling the story of her deceased ex-boyfriend. You know, the most appropriate adverb to describe the sadness or unexpectedness of her reaction is suddenly, because, you know, she was at first, you know, she was talking about the story of her ex-boyfriend who just lost his life because of car crash 10 years ago. She began her expression or telling the story in a very comfortable fashion, but in the middle, something almost changed. And to express the very emotional, what you call this, height she reached all of a sudden, would be to use suddenly as an adverb, to use it in that particular context. Now, why the others cannot be the answers? Silently. Silently means making any sound. Means without making any sound, which doesn't fit the context of suddenly, bursting into tears and screams. You know, she bursted. So the moment we're using the word bursting, then automatically it is contrary to the word silent. So silently cannot totally be a reason. Suddenly, I have already told you. See, romantically describes actions or emotions related to love or romance, which is not appropriate in this context. The context is not about romance. The context is about the very story of the boyfriend she had, who just simply lost his life as a result of car accident. So in the middle of her explanation, or in the middle of her narration, she automatically and dramatically went to another mood unexpectedly. So it cannot. Sensibly means in a practical or reasonable manner, which doesn't fit the context of the sudden emotional outburst. So because of these reasons, then the most appropriate choice would be suddenly. Now, dear students, I think you are with me. Great. Hoping that you are gaining some insight about the lesson, now let me go on to question number 5. Look, this question reads like this. It is a pity she didn't see her brother. Had she arrived a day earlier, she dash met him and enjoyed a bit of time with him. Look, the answer is C, could have. In this sentence, the speaker is expressing regret about the fact that she didn't arrive earlier to see her brother. You see, because it's in conditional 3, had she arrived, which shows impossible condition. Had plus subject plus V3 form of the verb. So automatically, what should come in the main clause should be something which is related with should, could, must have plus V3. But why we are just opting for could have instead of must have instead of should have? Of course, will have cannot totally be an answer. Why? I will tell you later on. The phrase could have in this context is used to indicate possibility or ability in the past that did not happen. You know, unlike that of the other ones, it suggests that if she had arrived a day earlier, that there was a possibility that she could have met him and spent time with him. So, why the others cannot be? A, must have. This suggests a logical deduction about a past event, which doesn't fit the context of expressing a missed opportunity due to timing. Will have is used for future events. It cannot totally be used with past events, so automatically you can reject it. Should have is used to express obligation or expectation about past actions or events, which doesn't fit the context of discussing a missed opportunity. So, because of this reason, then the most appropriate answer would be could have. You know, when you say the most appropriate answer, it means, relatively speaking, the better answer. Nothing is the best. In real life situation, for example, if you are communicating with people, must have and should have could be appropriate, but this is an exam. So all levels of what you call this grammatical accuracy is expected of us. That's why I'm trying to dissect each of the choices given, and then I'm trying to tell you the reasons as to why one is an answer while the others, of course, cannot be. Great. Question number 26. Everybody understands that most of you worked very hard. Dash, you would pass this test, but you don't have to lose hope if the result happens to be against your expectation, right? The correct answer is B class, which is so that. In fact, somewhere I told you that so that, of course, is appropriate to be used in a context where expressing purpose of a given action is needed. Okay? So, in this sentence, the blank is used to express the reason or purpose for working hard. The students worked hard with the expectation or intention that they would pass the test. That's why, of course, they were working hard. They were working tirelessly with the objective of passing the test with ease. So the phrase that best fits this meaning in this context is by way of indicating the purpose or intention that the students had was so that. So that is the most appropriate answer. Why the others cannot be? Let me justify. A, despite. Despite is used to indicate contrast or something happening despite something else which doesn't fit the context of indicating purpose or intention. So despite the fact that I studied hard, I couldn't succeed. Look, the two are totally contrary ideas. So for such kinds of contexts, of course, you might use it. C, as a result of which, this is used to indicate the consequence or outcome of something, okay, which doesn't fit the context of indicating purpose or intention. D, which means is used to explain or clarify something previously stated, which doesn't fit the context of indicating purpose or intention. So the most appropriate answer is choice B, so that. Number 27. If what you're telling me is true, then I dash straight away and register with them. I don't want to miss the opportunity. The correct answer is A, will go. This is conditional one. Let's analyze. In this sentence, the speaker is expressing a future intention or decision based on a condition. If what you're telling me is true. So if what you're telling me is true, then automatically I am ready to do whatever is coming next. The modal verb that best fits this context to indicate a future action is will go. Here is a breakdown of the options. All right? Will go is the correct answer because it expresses a future action or intention, as I have told you. It indicates that if the condition, the truth of what is being told, is met, definitely the speaker will take immediate action to register with them. So whatever you are telling me, if it proves itself to be true, then I'm ready to do whatever is expected of it to come as a consequence. Must go. This expresses necessity or obligation, as I told you just earlier, which doesn't fit the context of expressing. Always try to have a very clear understanding about the context. Before you simply go to the options, try to have a very clear understanding about the context class. I'm going to. The future form used to express plans or intentions. It doesn't go in line with, expressing spontaneous decisions based on a condition. Will, most of the time, of course, can be used to express spontaneous decisions, but is usually used to express your own intention and plan. For example, next year, God willing, I'm going to Kulubi Gabriel. Next year, God willing, I'm going to, for example, I'm going to the Al-Najashi Mosque in Tigray. Clear? And I'm going to visit the Al-Najashi Mosque in Tigray. I can say. That's the very plan I have. Very good. So, but in this context, the context doesn't show plan, but rather it shows a spontaneous decision. Number 28. The house dashed into last night and they have already reported it to the police. I will try to follow up the progress. Look, the house, the correct answer in this context is was broken. The correct answer is was broken. This is a question of understanding passive versus active voices. This is, by the way, understanding passive and active voice has always remained to be a challenge, let alone among the student community, even among people who are believed to have a very robust proficiency so long as English language is concerned. So students, what I strongly suggest is that it's better for you just to go deep into the ocean and then to have a very clear understanding about the distinctions between the use of passive and active. So the answer is D, was broken. Why? In this sentence, we are describing an event that happened to the house. We are describing an event that happened to the house. What happened to the house? It was broken into, sometimes in the recent past. So the action took place last night, for example. So the house was broken into last night and they have already reported to the police, it says, right? So the most appropriate answer in this context would be choice A. Why the others cannot be? For example, if you are taking choice A, why choice A cannot be an answer? For example, choice A, whenever it's taken into account, was being broken. It shows past continuous passive. This is in the passive progress or continuous tense, as I have mentioned, indicating that the action of breaking into the house was ongoing at a specific time in the past. However, this doesn't fit the context of the sentence, which is describing a completed event. So from the context, what you can understand is that the writer or the speaker is trying to tell us a completed action. It was the writer is not trying to tell us an action that was going on. So if it's a completed action in the past, then what would be more appropriate, or the kind of tense that would be more appropriate to be used here is simple past tense. And whenever you just convert it into passive, then it takes either was or were, depending on the subject. So in this regard, the subject is house, which is singular. So was plus V3 form. The verb was broken would be appropriate. Has been broken in the present. This is in the present perfect passive tense, which indicates that the action breaking into the house occurred at an specified time before now, but it's not suitable here because we are referring to a specific event in the recent past. But present perfect tense cannot refer to an action that took place in the past, so totally wrong. C, has broken, is in the present perfect tense, which indicates an action that happened at still unspecified time before now and continues to have a relevance to the present time, but it doesn't fit the context of describing a specific time in the recent past. And even it is not, or this one even should have been impassive, if at all, it could be considered as an answer, though it is not. Was broken, as I have told you, would be the most appropriate one. Great, class. I hope you're enjoying the lesson. Now let me come to question number 29. All right. If it blank for at least a month or so during the last 3 years, their cattle would have resisted the drought to a certain degree and perhaps survived in a better number. Okay. Still, this is a question which is related with conditionals. So the context permits conditional 3 to be applied here. So in this sentence, the most appropriate answer is choice B, had rained. In this sentence, we are discussing hypothetical past action. Its possible and its possible consequence, of course. So what is being discussed, or what are being discussed rather, are one, hypothetical past action and its consequence. The structure, if it had rained, is used to talk about a hypothetical past event, raining for at least a month or so in the last 3 years, but it didn't rain. Had it rained, then the farmers, of course, could have harvested a better product, but unfortunately it didn't rain, so as a result of this, there was not that much ample product harvested by the farmers. This is the very idea. So the very context of the sentence simply indicates hypothetical past condition in which the speaker is trying to, talk about the past action or the past situation by regretting. So, has rained in the present perfect tense, which indicates an action that starts in the past and continues up to the present. It doesn't fit the context. Had been raining is in the past perfect continuous tense, which indicates a continuous action that started and ended in the past. It doesn't fit the context of describing a specific hypothetical event and its consequences because it's totally out of the grammatical structure. So you can go and refer to the very syntactic structure of impossible conditionals. What kind of structure should we use in the if clause and what kind of structure should we use in the main clause? So anybody who can have a very clear understanding about the very syntactic makeup of conditional 3, definitely he would be in a position to understand that this cannot be an answer. Did rain is in the past simple tense, which refers to an action that happened at a specific time in the past, and it doesn't fit the context of discussing hypothetical past, and at the same time the grammatical makeup on its own nature doesn't allow did rain just to be inserted there. Why? Because of the obvious syntactic reason. So the most appropriate answer is D. Now class, let's go to question number 3O. Okay? This question reads like this. Her father walks very blank, but she's like tortoise. She saunters very slowly. Look, from this sentence, what you can understand is that the two ideas, the way the father walks and the way she walks, are totally different or are totally in a different pace. So what could be an appropriate choice to be filled in here in the blank space and then make the sentence more sensible? The correct answer, the correct choice is fast. You know, in this sentence, we are comparing the walking speeds of two individuals, as I told you earlier, the father and the daughter. We are simply trying to compare the walking speeds of two individuals, the father and the daughter. The word that best fits to describe someone who walks quickly in this context is fast. Fast. So whenever someone is walking quickly, then its equivalence or its equivalent adverb is fast. So A, for example, when we are trying to have a look at choice A, then urgently, this means in a way that requires immediate action or attention. This cannot totally be, which doesn't fit the context of describing walking speed. So urgently is related with something that requires urgent attention or urgent action. It doesn't have anything with work. B, quick. Quick is an adjective that means moving or able to move fast or quickly, but the adverb form is needed here to modify works. So we cannot say quick, but it should be quickly. Fastly is not a standard adverb in English totally. You know, one area which many speakers, and many of us of course do, end up in committing an error because of generalization is the fact that since most of adverbs do take ly, then we assume that fast, whenever it's changed into its adverb form, then we simply add ly, which is totally wrong. Fast as an adjective, fast as an adverb, it is the same. Fast is fast. So fast is the correct answer because it is the adverb that describe the father's walking speed as quick or rapid. So D is the most appropriate answer. Number 31. I wish that we dash today. It's really freezing and wet. Look. In this sentence, the speaker is expressing a wish regarding the present situation. Whenever you say I wish, for example, I ate my lunch, then wish is expressing the very interest that someone might be having. It could be at present or it could be in the past situations. The verb form that best fits this context is didn't need to work, which implies a desire that they didn't have the obligation to work on this particular day due to unpleasant weather conditions. So I wish, since it is an expression that shows a sort of what call this hypothetical assumption, therefore whenever you are expressing your wish in the present tense, always the past form is needed, and whenever you want to express your expectation about the past, your personal wish about the past, then the past perfect tense must be used. For example, let me give you an example. I wish I had my lunch now. Look now, the lunch is not ready, but what I am saying is I wish I had my lunch now. That's a simple wish. If it was about yesterday, I wish I had my lunch yesterday. I wish I had. So you cannot say I wish I have my lunch now, because exceptionally wish simply express a hypothetical situation, so it goes one tense step back whenever you want to describe your intention using wish. So because of this reason, A cannot be B cannot be an answer. Have not worked is in the present perfect tense, which doesn't fit the context of expressing a wish about the present situation. C will not need to work. Will not need to work is in the future tense, which doesn't fit the context of the present time, expressing a wish about the current situation, so it cannot totally fit in. Are not working, this is totally a different story of a present continuous action. So in this regard, whenever you want to express your present wish, then you should always use past action. Your past wish, you should always use past perfect action. So, for instance, I wish Dr. Getachew gave us a good lecture yesterday. Look, you're talking about the very lecture which Getachew gave you yesterday, okay? So, I wish you had been present. You cannot say I wish you were present. You know, if it is about the present tense then, or the present situation, then you could use I wish you were present. Even you cannot say you are present. So, Dr. Daniel is giving us a good lecture now. I wish you were present. Dr. Getachew gave us a good lecture yesterday. I wish you had been present. You cannot use simple present form of the verb with wish, despite the fact that we are talking about the present time. All right, class? Yeah, go and then refer different books. Number 32. I was offered a reasonable fund for helping them organize the competition, but I didn't accept it because I just wanted to make my own contribution. The correct answer is D. The correct answer is D, the preposition A. Look, in this sentence, the phrase a reasonable fund is describing the amount of money offered to the speaker for helping organize a competition. So the most appropriate choice would be A. Choice would be the article A. So let's try to analyze why the rest of the choice, of course, cannot be answers here. For instance, whenever we're picking the choice A up, much is used with uncountable nouns class. Much is used with uncountable nouns to indicate a large quantity, such as much water, much money. It doesn't fit with a reasonable fund, which is countable. The is a definite article used to specify a particular noun, which doesn't fit the context of describing an unspecified amount of money. C, an, is an indefinite article used before words beginning with a vowel sound, such as an apple or an owl. D, A is a correct answer because it's an indefinite article used before singular countable nouns. So it's because of this reason the indefinite article A would be a more appropriate choice. Good class. So choice D is your answer. Number 33. Dash she came home. I made her coffee. Then we sat together and had hours of talk and talk. Here the correct answer is choice B. Why? Let's analyze. In this sentence, we are describing a sequence of events. First, the same home. Look, then the speaker made her coffee. And then they sat together and talked for hours. As you can see, there are sequence of events taking place here. So the word that best introduces this sequence of events indicates the time at which an action occurs is when. Because whenever you are describing events sequentially, then one of the most appropriate WH words to be used indispensably, even in this context, is when. Let's see why the others, of course, cannot be regarded as answers. For instance, whenever we're taking while, while is used to indicate two actions happening at the same time. For example, I can say, while my mother was making the bed, I was, for example, taking shower. All right? While my mother was making the bed, I was taking shower. So these two actions took place in the past, but parallelly. So for such kinds of expressions, we can use while. Otherwise, in this context, we cannot. Suddenly most of the time is used to describe something happening unexpectedly. Somewhere, of course, we use suddenly as an answer. So in that context, definitely must have understood very well as to why suddenly, of course, became an appropriate answer there, but it cannot be an appropriate one in the very context that we are discussing or that we are dealing right now. So this one is used to describe something happening unexpectedly or quickly. Prior means before or earlier in time. So prior cannot be, which doesn't fit the context of describing when she came home. So taking all this into consideration, then we'd understand that the most appropriate choice would be choice B, when. Great. Now navigating through the water, we have reached question number 34. All right. Can anyone tell me dash book this is? It has been lying here for months. It has been. Look, the correct answer is which. Why we are saying which? In this sentence, the speaker is asking for information, all right, about the identity of the book. What the speaker is trying to ask is just about the very identity of the book that has been lying there for 3 months. The word that best fits this context to introduce a question about the identity or nature of something is which. Whenever we just take into account the relative pronoun that could possibly be used or that could more appropriately be used in identifying a sort of identity in this context, among others, is of course the relative pronoun which. Why others cannot be? Now let's dissect as usual. Of who? Choice A says of who, right? This is grammatically incorrect. It's my belief, dear student, that you have never come across such an expression in English language. It should be whose if referring to possession or ownership. We cannot use of whom. If our intention, our plan is just to refer to a given person who possesses something as an owner, then it is whose, which is to be used. Which is the correct answer because it introduces a question about the identity or nature of something. I told you. What about is used to ask about someone's opinion or to suggest discussing something further. So you use what about whenever you want to gauge somebody's opinion or somebody's suggestion on a given topic. Otherwise, you don't use what about. Whose is used to ask about possession or ownership. Example, whose book is this? But it doesn't fit well in the sentence structure where the focus is not on identifying the very owner of the book, but rather on identifying the book itself, not the owner of the book. On identifying what class? Students? The book itself. So, when you want to identify the identity of something, the most appropriate relative pronoun to be used is which. If it is a thing or an animal, if it is not a human being as a whole. Great. Now, let's go down to question number 35, hoping that you have remained intact with your all attentions, just like in equal strengths like the one we had by the time we began our journey with question number 1. So let me come to question number 35. She likes chatting with children, and we actually have a lot in common, but unlike her, I hate playing with dogs. Look, the correct answer in this context is choice A, so do I. Why? In this sentence, so do I would be an appropriate answer because the structure she likes chatting with children and so do I can be used to express agreement with the first part of the statement. Because the first part of the statement says what? She likes chatting with children, right? She likes what? What does she like? She likes chatting with children. I also like chatting with children. So the phrase so do I is used to indicate that the speaker shares the same liking or preference as someone else. For example, if I say, I like watching football, then the other party, if he shares the same sort of habit or if he has the same kind of interest as I do, then he can say, so do I. That means we are in the same boat. Good. If so do I is an answer, why the rest of the choices cannot be answers? All right? Why the rest of the choices cannot be answers? B. I too like is grammatically correct, but doesn't fit the structure of the sentence as well as so do I does to express agreement. So it cannot be, because grammatically it is incorrect. Also do I is not the correct phrase. Also do I is not the correct phrase totally. In English to express agreement. Also is used differently in sentences. Also shows additional. It's not something which shows an alternative position. D, also I like, is not the correct phrase either. In English, the correct structure would be I also like. You cannot say also I like. I also like. If at all, this has to be an answer that could replace so do I. Also should come right after the subjective pronoun I. Good. Number 36. The school director sent you a message, but apparently your sister dashed to tell you you were supposed to report to his office this morning. The correct answer is C, forgot. In this sentence, we are talking about an action that happened in the past. Your sister not telling you about the message, which affected your obligation to report to the school director's office, So, the best answer, as I told you, or the most appropriate answer, as I told you, is C, choice C, which carries the word forgot. Why the others cannot be answers? A is forgetting. Forgetting is a present progressive form, right? Or tense, indicating an action that is ongoing in the present. So it shows an action that's taking place at the moment, but the action in which the context is happening in our question is related to the past, so it cannot automatically be an answer. Has forgot is grammatically incorrect. The correct form should be has forgotten. Forgot is the correct answer, as I told you, because it is a simple past tense of forget. It describes an action that happened in the past, Your sister forgot to tell you which affected your current situation. Forgets is in the present simple tense, which cannot express a past action. Great. 37. He was doing the washing up, dash she was cleaning the house. We like that they help one another. Okay? The most appropriate answer for this question is choice D, while. You know, in this sentence, why do we consider while as the most appropriate answer? Whenever we're considering while as the most appropriate answer, of course, we do have a reason. In this sentence, we are addressing two actions that were happening at the same time in the past. The word that best fits this context to indicate simultaneous actions, as I told you previously in the previous discussions of mine, while I was discussing issues somewhere in relation to this idea, I told you that while is the most appropriate sort of choice. Why the others cannot be, for example, during. During is used to indicate a period of time in which something happens. It doesn't necessarily imply simultaneous actions, but rather a duration. For example, I simply finished my high school during the dark time, for example, somebody might say. I completed my high school during the APRDF-led government period. Clear? During. Before indicates an action that occurred rather earlier than another action. So before cannot be, because it shows an action that took place prior to the accomplishment of another action. Since this is used to indicate a point in time from which something started. For example, we have been attending this lecture since 10 a.m., for example, I can say. So since shows a point in time from which something started. It doesn't fit the context of describing simultaneous actions. So because of this reason, the most appropriate answer would be while. Right. Now we have finished part 1.